Hey guys, Macca the Toy Guy here, trying to get back into a few of these videos. I want to do this thing called Toy Talk, which I've been talking about doing for a while. I'm sure there's probably a million segments out there all over the world called Toy Talk. This is basically just about what comes up when I'm thinking about my collection, thinking about collecting, and thinking about the hobby and the community, and just a few things. So today, I want to talk about where we source our toys, whether it's marketplace, whether it's cheating if we use eBay, or whether it's that thrill of the hunt at a collector con, or even a swap meet where you pick up that elusive $50 toy for $1 in somebody's 6x4 trailer. Also want to talk about what happens when you lose interest in your collection. We all go through these little phases where we just lose interest. We get busy, whatever it might be. And you're like, am I just going to tub this stuff up and get rid of it, or maybe put it in a bigger room one day when I get a bigger house? What am I going to do? Or am I going to find a way to enjoy it? And you find yourself walking around your toy room going, hey, is this still what I want to do after a while? Or even refocusing your collection. And the new Masters toys, I'll show you those as well. So a bit of an episode for you today to get it kicked off. But first off, just talking about where you source those toys. Some people say that eBay is cheating if you're getting pieces for your collection from eBay. Now, obviously, we know eBay is a great thing. It's a great thing to sell stuff as well. Like if you go and buy a bulk set of toys and you take those couple that you need for your collection out, and then you go and sell those onto Marketplace or eBay or whatever in kind, then that's fine, and it works really well. Some people actually say, no, look, eBay, it's not really toy collecting, whatever. Look, I say, if it works for you, go and do it. Marketplace is a fun one, and I think for me, Marketplace is a fun one because people in your area liking the same stuff you do is actually pretty cool. Like you just think, okay, how many toy collectors are there in my particular suburb or my particular area or within 100 kilometres of me? And sometimes it's fun just to go for that 75 kilometre an hour drive one way or an hour kilometre drive the other way, just to be able to, pick up that toy that you were chasing to complete your collection. And it's funny, I've driven 100 kilometres for what most would see as a $20 toy just because I've been able to put it into a line, and it's one of the best ways to spend a Sunday. Grab a frozen Coke and head back, and you got a big smile on your face when it comes into the collection. So it just depends on which way you want to go, but I'm interested in the comments as to, if you're watching these videos, what your thoughts are about where you source, where you prefer to source. Collector cons, things like that are absolutely phenomenal. We love those. So, just very interested to find out if people think that buying off eBay isn't as fun. Obviously, eBay's changed a little bit now, Marketplace, whatever it might be, what you're into as far as where you actually source your toys from. I still reckon the greatest thrill is when you find that dollar toy at that swap meet or whatever else, and you just grab it. And it's something you needed for your collection, and 100 people walked past it that day because they either didn't know what it was or didn't care about it, and you did, and it was really cool. So the next one I want to talk about is what happens when you lose interest in your collection. Now, we all go through these phases. I've spoken to a lot of people in toy communities. We love our collections and whatever, but when you hunt down that piece, when you decide to collect that particular line, you hunt down the piece, you finish the toy line, or you might not even finish the toy line, you might lose interest halfway through. You may not be a completist collector, you may just be somebody wanting the figures, you might not want the weapons, the accessories, or every figure in the toy line. And you've got a bit of a collection amassed, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, I'm just going to change direction, or I don't want to do vintage anymore, I want to do modern now because there's some really cool modern stuff. Or I don't want to do 5 and 6 inch scale anymore. I want to give it a crack for some of the bigger stuff, like your sideshow pieces, or your big 1/6 scale stuff, or more premium pieces if you like, or just life gets in the way and you just think, am I better off just not collecting at all? So I'm interested in people's thoughts and comments on that one as well. I've gone to ChatGPT a couple of times and I've said, hey, GPT, get me interested in my collection again. What have I got to do? Because I knew that I loved it, and I know that a lot of the pieces spark joy. But at the end of the day, you go, how much joy is sparked, or would you rather pay your power bill? So there's those sorts of things. One of the big questions is, if you had a house fire, and God forbid you don't, but if you had a house fire, what would you replace? And I think that's a good thing to look at as well when looking at your toy collection, and just saying, okay, if the joint caught on fire, and everything burnt to the ground and I had a toy collection, what would I actually replace in my toy collection? And for me, it's actually kind of crazy for a bloke that's probably got 1,000 toys in his toy collection and more stuff downstairs and buying and selling all the time and in the community. I don't know what I would replace, whether I'd just go with something completely different. Sometimes it's a bit of an addiction, the actual act of picking the toys up more so than the toys themselves. Just being able to get that buzz, that quick nostalgia fix, or that quick little hit to go, yeah, that's really cool. I had that when I was a kid 40 years ago, whatever it might be. So, ask yourself, if the joint did burn down, what would I actually do? What would I replace? Would I go back to my vintage Motu? I think I'd probably grab Voltron again. I'd probably grab some vintage Transformers. I think I'd probably more gravitate to the stuff that I had when I was a kid. I've bought and sold my collection many times. But I am also really looking at getting into some 1/6 scale stuff. So, the 1/6 scale Ninja Turtles, and there's some good Batmans there. I've got the Batman, but to chase the Penguin and the Catwoman and a few of those, and then actually have them in a lounge room rather than having 1,000 figures all spread out all over the place and whatever, like you sort of see behind you and you can't see, but in front of you and in the next room or more. You actually see these beautiful figures with these spotlights on them, like your Hot Toys collections and those sorts of things. So just looking at that, so just ask yourself, if you've lost interest in your collection, when was the last time you decided to move it around? I also decided to opt for, with my Masters of the Universe collection, to actually just put it all on normal size tables at waist length, and create a bit of a battle diorama, which you guys can see if you look at one of the earlier videos there. And the idea was because there's so many figures in the line that by the time you put them all on shelves, like behind, they're all bunched up. You need to get risers, or you need a much bigger space. I've sold 2 of my properties, and at the moment the rental property I'm staying in doesn't have a massive amount of space, so the dining room and the lounge room have kind of become the toy room to keep the hobby running. So to be able to do that was really cool, but I've seen some really, really awesome display ideas for people. But what you basically find is that people will grab the shelves and they'll put all the toys on the shelves and they'll try and squeeze as many of those in as possible. So maybe just look at it, and it could be the clutter, it could be that overstimulation where you just go, hang on a second, there's just too much in this room. Maybe I'll space it out to a few of my favourite collections. And these aren't just my ideas. These are stuff that I've spoken to friends in the community when I was a bit down, saying, hey, do I continue to keep the collection? Or also ChatGPT was pretty fantastic in, saying, well, why don't you just put one shelf up in your lounge room of your 10 favourite toys? Or when you do your video, why don't you just pick your 10 favourite toys and do a video on each one of those toys and whatever. And when you start sifting through, you're like, actually, I really love that. I love that. That made me smile. I had that toy when I was 5. I remember that my dad, he's passed away now, but I remember when Dad and I played on the floor with that one and whatever. And it's just super cool. And that's what I'm all about, is giving permission to play again. But just because you're growing older doesn't mean you need to grow up. And I just hope that if anybody gets anything out of my videos, that it's okay to collect this stuff and have fun with this stuff and take you back to a time. Look at all the shit we're going through at the moment with the government. We're looking at, inheritance tax, for fuck's sake. Like, you look at these, basically you're going to get taxed when you die. It's just, it's so insane. They're even talking about now about getting rid of single-use coffee cups and creating keep cups, so that you go through Macca's, you've got to hand them a cup because apparently it's bad for the environment and all of this sort of stuff. And the dolphins are going to choke on the coffee cups and all of this stuff. And you're just like, man, just shut the fuck up for 5 minutes. Literally, just shut the fuck up. So it's a case of just being able to come back to that little space that just makes sense to you. It just takes you back to that smile of when you played with that toy when you were a kid or whatever else. So if you've been like me and you've been looking at the collection and going, hey, I don't know if this one's sparking joy or anything anymore, maybe just think about that. Think about moving it around. Think about, okay, if the joint caught on fire, what do I do? So maybe that's helped some people out. Maybe it hasn't, but I found that it worked for me. Just going to do a couple of quick Motu figures. The movie's out tomorrow. I'm absolutely rapt to see it. So I've gone and picked up a few of these. I've got to say I'm pretty happy. And the big reason I'm happy with these, I did mention it in my video earlier of the Skeletor mask, is that they are 12 and 14 bucks for these little figures at your Big W's and your Kmarts and whatever. To be able to go and pick up He-Man off the shelf at 45 years of age, like I used to be able to in Narrabri Toy World as a kid, when I got a bit of money or I got to come across to Tamworth and go to Kmart, whatever, as a young bloke, the nostalgia in that was really cool. But the best part about it as well is parents don't have a lot of money to be able to give their kids for pocket money and things like that. And if they earn a few points and do a bit of housework and whatever, and they can pick up a few bucks, kids, 2026 kids, are going to be able to grab He-Man for $12 or $14. Now, we all know, and I can show you some of the figures in here at the moment that are a little bit upscale of that. They're not all going to be like that, but if you want He-Man and you want Skeletor, you can grab them for 12 or 14 bucks. For under 30 bucks, you're playing on the floor like I used to. And I think that's really cool that the kids are playing with the same stuff that Dad used to play with back in the day. So I'll sit that one down. This Roboto is actually really interesting. I think the Roboto for the movie is a crazy, interesting design as well. I think it was actually voiced by a female. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But I'm waiting to see the movie tomorrow. I'm wrapped about it. Wasn't sure about this Roboto. It had a bit more of a Lost in Space sort of feel to me. I guess I'll understand it more with the movie. I love the vintage Roboto, which I think is here, where he's just got the nice clear torso there, and you can see his cogs and whatnot. As you can see, very different change. I'm interested to see how he's actually going to go in the movie, or she, if she's actually got a female voicing her, or him, or it, or whatever. You don't know. It's 2026. Hers, hims, its, they're all the same thing apparently. You can identify as a robot if you want. So that one was really cool. That was a bit dearer than the 12 or 14 bucks. I don't think it was a lot dearer, but a little bit. This one as well. I just think this Skeletor is absolutely amazing for a lower end figure. The card art on the front's amazing, and the back there as well. One of the things I really like about it, if you have a look, is the scale of strength, magic, skill, these different things there. And basically you can see Skeletor pretty much tops the heap. When you look at He-Man, you can see they're pretty evenly matched up, but it looks like Skeletor might have it a bit over He-Man there, so that's really cool, particularly from the magic side of things. I did this mask, the Skeletor mask. I'm not going to go too far into that just because I did the video, so check my video. That would be my favourite out of the Masters of the Universe toys. And Mechaneck. I was never a really big fan of Mechaneck. He never did much for me. I like the tough guy toys. The 1980s for me, being a martial artist and doing Taekwondo myself, were all about Van Damme and about Bruce Lee and about the American Ninja movies and the Karate Kid movies and whatever, which I've spoken about before. And Mechaneck to me just seemed like a really goofy character for a cartoon series that are just absolutely full of tough guys. So Mechaneck really never did much for me. I didn't have him as a toy. I've obviously got him in the different character lines now in my collection, including the vintage. But yeah, this is actually kind of cool too. So that just gives you a bit of a run. This Skelly Knight is the new character, which I'll show you in a sec. So it's basically a foot soldier of sorts, if you like. I haven't seen the movie. I haven't 100% worked out. I'll be able to tell you more tomorrow. But basically, I'm assuming he's a henchman, if you like, for Skeletor, as the foot soldiers are for Shredder in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's got a bit of strength about him, but he seems a bit dumb. I think they're probably cannon fodder type characters. But once again, 12 to 14 bucks, you've got something to gang up on He-Man with. If you grab Skeletor for 45 bucks, you've got He-Man, Skeletor, and this guy flogging the living Jesus out of each other, which is super cool if you're an 8-year-old kid. So I thought that was really awesome. Grab Trapjaw as well. Trapjaw, really excited to see what they do. Apparently there is an amazing Trapjaw battle in the movie. I've spoken to a heap of people. I've watched a heap of reviews. I'm really looking forward to this Trapjaw scene. I think, don't quote me, but I think it's going to be Trapjaw and Man-at-Arms by the sound of it. And I won't be doing any spoilers after I review the movie anyway. But really cool. He's obviously got little actions there that he does with his different attachments. And we all love the different attachments on Trapjaw from the vintage line and the other lines. This one was one that I picked up that actually was just in the cartoon series. So you had your Super 7 stuff and you had your Origin stuff. This was cool. Actually came with a couple. You had the Whiplash, you had Bow, of course, from Shearer, which I think I have one there. I don't know if I can reach it. Maybe. It's a vintage bow. Live YouTube at its best, folks. I'm certainly not a expert editor or anything like that. Just love doing these. Always wanted a Shadow Weaver in the collection. I'm looking forward to actually putting this into the collection. All of these I'm going to open up for 12 or 14 bucks. I'm not worried. This one was a little bit more expensive. Might have been $24, $25. But to have the Shadow Weaver, anybody who knows about the Shadow Weaver, she's just a cool character. She fits with that Orco vibe and whatever. She gives the magic and the mystery and that sort of stuff to the He-Man line. She is a little bit evil and mysterious and whatever. So I actually think she's pretty cool. She's from the Princess of Power, more so than Masters of the Universe, which is obviously why you see her tied up more with Shearer and whatnot. But very cool figure. Shadow Weaver, so she'll be going in. She's about 5.5 scale. One of the things that I noticed with these figures, unless they were bigger like Roboto or like the Trapjaw figure that come with a bit more, or even Mechanic, are actually a little bit smaller than what your He-Man figures would be. So if that's a Skeletor there, and say, for example, that's a Skeletor, when you put them side by side, you can just see that Skeletor, although they're a pretty similar size. This one a little bit bulkier, that one's a little bit skinnier. And apparently that was one of the complaints for the movie as well. They just felt that He-Man and Skeletor could have been a little bit more solid in their appearance, particularly with these figures. And then when these figures came out, people said we just expected them to be bulky. Well, I went into one of the other department stores and I actually found, and didn't know that it existed, pretty much the exact replica of the Origin style lines, but for so they're the bigger, bulkier, more musclier torso characters for the movie line, and they're actually really cool. But I wasn't going to not pay the power bill and buy those as well. So I actually thought they were cool because they were the ones that you'd want to hold in your hand, and they were actually the character likeness from the movies, which I thought was absolutely amazing. So there we go, guys. That's my toy talk for today. And yeah, just going to run a few of these. It's just me chilling in the toy room. If you're interested in, commenting, we can have a bit of a yarn or whatever. I'm very interested to know what people are thinking, whether it's toy auctions, garage sales, marketplace, eBay, where you're sourcing your toys or where you wouldn't want to source your toys from. I'm interested in that as well. Also, we went through what happens when you lose interest in your collection. Hopefully, we gave you a couple of tips there. If you do want to rekindle that collecting spirit, which we all get into that state, and then run you through a few of the Masters of the Universe movie toys. So for me, a bit of fun. Thanks for hanging out, and can't wait to do Toy Talk again for you shortly. Remember, give yourself permission to play again. We'll catch you next time.